Who's going to be on the debate stage? That is indeed the question. That is indeed the question. And that is a question that we're going to find out. We're probably going to know today, but at the latest, probably Friday, where we'll get the official reading of it. But the deadline, however, is today. And I want to talk about the deadline that is going to take place today and what we know up to this point about the rule set that is going to be used to determine who's going to be on that debate stage and who, up to this point, has ensured their spot on that debate stage. Welcome to the Soapbox. So the Democratic primaries are set to take place in June, and we have a bulging a field of Democrats, going 22 Democrats. Well, they've set the debate stage to take place on 2 nights, which means there are going to be some people who don't qualify. So Democrats came up with some of the rule set and pushed candidates to meet that rule set in order to get on the debate stage. Now, the debate stage is where you want to go because that's the place where you get to showcase yourself to the public and allow that public to get a choice. The catch is, there's been a rule change. For the third debate, the rules narrow. It becomes harder to get on the stage for that third debate. I talked about that in another video. I'll put that video at the bottom. I don't necessarily want to go full into that again because that video ended up being 30 minutes. But I want to nail down what that rule set is for the debates that's coming up in June and the deadline that's taking place tonight at midnight. I also want to go into the rule change that took place, just kind of short touching it, just a slight bit of touching it, to explain that new rule change and what the rule change is going to mean. And I kind of also want to talk about who, up to this point, will be on that debate stage for the very least the first 2 nights. So, let's start here. There has been, let's start with the rule change first, and then let's go to the debates. There's been a slight rule change. So, as you know, in order to get onto the debate stage currently, the following must be true. In order to qualify for the first 2 debates, the DNC requires candidates to have at least 1% of the vote in 3 national or early primary state polls, or donations from at least 65,000 unique donors, including at least 200 individuals in 20 states. If 20 plus candidates qualify, those who meet both the donor and the polling thresholds get priority. That's what's true for the first 2 debates. After the first 2 debates, the rule set changes. And we get this. The DNC plans to hold 12 debates during the 2020 campaign season. Due to the size of the Democratic field, the first 2 debates, scheduled to take place in June and July, will each be held over the period of 2 days. In order to qualify for the third debate, new DNC rules state that candidates must receive 2% or more support in at least 4 polls in order to qualify for the third debate on September 12th. The threshold for earlier debates is 1% in the polls. Candidates in the third debate will also be required to certify that their campaign have received a minimum of 130,000 individual donations compared to the 65,000 threshold for the first 2 debates. There are currently 24 candidates in the Democratic field. In response to the new criteria, well, that gets into Laney. There, as you can imagine, the people who don't believe they're going to be able to hit that new threshold is somewhat not enthused about the new threshold. And to be fair to them, they may have a point. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a self-serving argument of, wait a minute, the public's just not in it to me yet. By the same token, it is somewhat of a subjective thing to say 2 debates as opposed to maybe 3 or 4. So, fair enough. Not to mention, someone made the point in the last video, I think Garden, that if you donated to a candidate and you didn't know that, you may feel some kind of way because you thought your candidate would be able to run to the fullest extent of the candidate's momentum. Nevertheless, that's the new rule change for the third debate, set to take place in September. The first 2 debates, the rules haven't changed. All right. To get into the candidates that are going to be on the debate stage. So, right now, midnight is when the deadline is set to expire. And at 11 in the morning, the candidates are essentially going to have to, present their evidence of sorts. But the choice is going to be made from that point. Now, what we know currently about who has established a spot on the debate stage. These people have so far ensured that at the very least for the first two debates, they will be there. One Mr. Joe Biden, one Mr. Bernie Sanders, one Miss Tulsi Gabbard, one Miss Elizabeth Warren, one Kamala Harris, one Beto O'Rourke, who has no momentum at this point, one Pete Buttigieg, one Andrew Yang, pushing the UBI, one Marianne Williamson, spiritual advisor, one Payne Cory Booker, who's out there begging for cash, one Julianne Castro, one Amy Klobuchar, who's essentially bad to her staff, and one Jay Inslee. Now, there are more, but those are the people that, for the most part, were able to get both the $65,000 donation qualification and the 65,000 unique donations, in addition to the 1%, or at the very least, at least 1% in the polls. They were able to get both, including the two dark horses, Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson, who are not necessarily known in the political circles per se. So it's somewhat notable that they were able to kind of pull this off. She is out there screaming about spiritual renewal. And while I don't necessarily think she's wrong, I don't know what her tax policy is. The spiritual renewal thing is nice. It feels good, but I don't necessarily know what the master of whispers, and those type of things, the details, the basics of running government. Spirituality is nice, but what does it look like in the tax policy? Then we can have that conversation. Further people who are in this contest who didn't get both, but they were able to get one or the other in regards to the 65,000 individual donations or the 1% of the polls. Michael Bennet of Colorado, John Hickenlooper, Tim Ryan, Eric Swalwell, California, John Delaney of Maryland, New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio, who couldn't explain why people didn't necessarily like him and why he's staying in the race when people don't necessarily like him. I think he got like 0 in the Iowa poll. But that's what we know so far. Now, I got to be honest, it is somewhat a certain degree of unclear on what's known and how the DNC has come up with some of these guidelines. So, The Hill reports only 20 candidates will make the stage for the June 26-27 debate, which will spread out across 2 days with 10 candidates on each night, Wright said that. It's unclear who would debate whom or how the Democratic National Committee will make the final calls on placement of candidates. So we have no idea how they're going to pull these guys together. They're saying it's going to be some kind of random choice, but we have no idea what that's going to be. The DNC has not announced when it will disclose the final list of 20 debate participants, but the campaign source said it would come Friday. Source within the campaign said you get the information Friday. The deadline to qualify is midnight Wednesday, and the candidates have until 11 a.m. Thursday to provide certification to the DNC. So midnight is qualification. By 11 a.m. you have to be able to certify that the rule set has been met, in which case you get on the debate stage. And again, if there's more contestants, meaning if there's 22 or 23, at that point, priority will be shown to the people who are able to get both. And at that point, if you have this thing where you have 19, and then there are like 3 other people, and you have 4 who didn't make both, I don't know how they're going to make the qualification of that last person. Maybe it's random pick. I have no idea. This is this kind of weird system that these guys have concocted in order to try to make up for what they consider to be the flaw in the 2016 campaign. In the mind of Tom Perez, it's not that they cheated Sanders. It was the perspective of cheating, in which case we need to do everything we can now to get rid of that perspective that we cheated. And so we're going to make the debate schedule as bureaucratic nightmare as we possibly can. Essentially, this technocratic nightmare. That's what we know so far. I'm not going to keep this video. I don't want this video to go long. But by the way, one last point. The reason they're narrowing the debates is because they don't want their candidates out there fighting for the limelight. Right now, you have 22 candidates. What do these guys do when they're trying to get to the limelight? What are they incentivized to do? How are they incentivized to behave? Think of it as you throwing meat into a bunch of bears. They're going to rip that meat to pieces. They're going to do what they can in order to get to that meat. I am making this case that the meat here is the limelight to the public. You create a situation of the Democrats being more contentious to one another because they need to do what they can to try to grab the limelight. They need people to see them. They need their ideas to get out there. Otherwise, they're just going to get dropped into irrelevance. Sanders is coming out with a big speech tonight, but if you notice, they are doing what they can to stay in front of the media and to get their ideas out. They're incentivized to be aggressive in doing this. So this is going to be interesting in regards to the debates, especially for the people who are at that 1% threshold. Those people need to essentially mind the gap, meaning they need to make up points. And the debates is going to be the area where they get to make up those points, but they're only going to get 2, which gets to this thing of, is 2 enough? Should it be 3? Should it be 4? How did you determine 2? You know, it gets a little dicey. But nevertheless, this is what we know up to this point about the deadline that's coming up, about the people who are currently on stage and have locked in their spots. Yeah, this is what we know so far. All right, I will end this here because, like I said, I didn't want this one to go too long. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. All right, because people yell at me when I miss their chats. All right, I'll end it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. I'll see you momentarily. And this.